name's Brittany.
And I'm Connor.
And we have a channel on inspiring authentic relationships where we talk together about just that, inspiring authentic relationships. We also have our own individual channels. Mine is under Brittany Taylor, and I talk about full body health, simple living, minimalism, and all the good things.
And mine is Thriving Minimalist, and I also talk about minimalism, full body health, and self-love. The channel that we have together is under our names, Conor and Brittany. Both Brittany and I are really hypersocial and really into people. I think all human creatures are really hypersocial, but we, I think, have an even more hypersocial affinity and love for relationships, communication, for hugs, for closeness with people.
Yeah, I really notice the theme of relationships permeating all areas of our life and our self-growth and how important it is to us.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really excites me about being in a partnership with you in business and acro and in life is your desire to really delve into relationships in a hardcore way, really authentic, really honest, really passionate, and support each other in all those kind of flowing relationships that may develop from that space.
I feel like we're total growth junkies, and we love getting to the next level and the next level in our lives in so many different realms, and I just find that it's so much more fulfilling, invigorating, exciting to do that alongside another human, and especially alongside somebody that you can feel such unconditional love from and for, and such support from and for. I could do this kind of growth on my own, but it wouldn't be as fun, it wouldn't be as amazing or as rapid, and it's not my preference.
Relationships can really enhance our lives, big time. They can also kind of, at times, maybe hold us back, and so I think what I've done on an individual basis is really take a look at the ones that were lifting me up and take a look at the ones that maybe weren't, and make a decision to do something, to let go of or to move apart from the ones that were maybe not supporting me in the way I really wanted, and to get closer to the ones that truly do.
And I found too, along with that, holding ourselves to a higher standard for ourselves,
right,
and what we want to welcome into our world, and the same thing with the people we want to welcome in, is really set ourselves up for just epic, ever unfolding growth. We've both had such epic transformations. When I think about, not that I knew you then, but when I think about what I know of your life,
yes,
5-10 years ago, and my life 5-10 years ago, yeah, I mean, health-wise, I was sick and not vibrant, and I felt trapped in areas of my life, trapped within my job, trapped within many of my relationships, and it was sort of that quiet desperation in that my life was pretty awesome, and also there was so much more. And I was kind of saying to myself, yeah, I have a good life, so I should be thankful, and I wasn't holding myself to this higher standard. I wasn't saying I can have everything that I want.
Yeah, same. I felt stuck, and in retrospect it's easy to recognize that. But at the time, I didn't even know that I felt stuck. I just know that I felt like life was hard all the time. And that was as early as 5 years ago. I was still feeling like life is hard. And then it got to be the hardest it had ever been when my partnership of 12 years kind of
just broke down.
It finally things came to a head, and that had to shift. And that's when I decided I needed to shift. If I wanted to change one thing, I needed to change everything, because everything was so tied into itself. It was this web of anxiety and depression and trying to cope with a myriad of things that just led to more anxiety and depression, and continued to take me further away from myself rather than getting closer. So now looking back, it's easy to say I was stuck, but at the time it was I just know that I was uncomfortable. I knew that life felt hard. And now, like almost 5 years later, I feel like life is anything but hard. And when it does feel challenging, it feels like, yes, that is the growth that I'm looking for. I choose it.
Right.
I'm not a victim of those challenges. I really choose those. And I go out of my way every single day to find more joy in life. And I'm really good at it at this point.
Yeah, I love what you say about choosing. I really feel like we choose this joyful existence, and I didn't used to feel like that. I felt like life was happening to me. Like Conor said, I think for me as well, it almost like got to this place of desperation. I'm going to say that word, but it feels that way. Like I had to make a change. I was feeling really sick in my body, physically sick, and I knew that I just felt like desperate. I felt like I would try anything, and I asked the right questions, and the universe answered, and it felt like I was just elated to find raw foods in this case. And one thing led to another, and just like there can be this like negative ripple effect, it can feel like when one thing in your life is hard, everything feels hard. When one part of your life is elevated, it makes you want to make these changes everywhere, and you can see a fresh new perspective. And I just felt like so empowered to recognize that I could change my health, that I could wake up every day and feel vibrant and alive, and I had so much more energy to put into changing my job, changing my setting around me, my relationships, my physical activity.
Yeah. Wow, I love what you just said there about like that one element when we see that we have the power to make change and to bring health into our lives in this one area, I think it infects the possibility. It ignites potential. And that's really what happened for me too. Like the very first thing I wanted to do was just like immediately change like every single bad habit that I had developed. But I hadn't quite known that actually what I was looking for was like more happiness. So I just started off doing like raw foods and changing my diet and doing a plant-based lifestyle and starting to move more and getting rid of alcohol and cigarettes and caffeine and opiates and all of these things that were kind of like obviously holding me back. And that kind of fire ignited this passion for ultimately what became known to me as following this pursuit of joy and continuing on to find the things that really continue to like elevate me up to that joyous state, and not neglecting these other emotional experiences, because those brought a lot of value into my life and allowed me to find more joy and continue to allow me to go to the next level. But not to dwell in it either, not to get lost in it, and not to cope in unhealthy ways. So what started out with just like eating bananas initially has really become a full-fledged kind of devotion to a higher way of living.
Raw veganism for me started out as just like a gateway to health. And all the other benefits of it have sort of started to permeate my life after the fact. I know when I first started eating a raw plant-based diet, I felt super excited to be in like this niche sort of zone of like, what are the fruits that I can eat and what are the vegetables I can eat? And it felt really fun and exciting to have a protocol. And over time, I've found that what that protocol has become is listening to my body and eating what feels great for me and great in my body. And as it turns out, they're the same thing. Like eating juicy fruit and tender greens is so simple, and it's like this simple truth that when it's put to the test, I feel like for me, every time it comes back as like, oh yeah, obviously, like my body gives me the feedback, my mind gives me the feedback. Every area of my life functions better when I eat this raw plant-based diet. So it feels like the obvious way to me, and I feel like as humans we're really set up to thrive on that diet.
Yeah, I think that there is obviously a lot of different ways to eat. And I think initially, before we get in touch with our bodies, it's really important to do some investigation as to our options. And it just so happened that I was living with someone who knew about a fruit-based lifestyle, raw vegan, fruit-based lifestyle, and I wanted to make all these changes, and he was like, oh man, you just gotta start eating these bananas, you know? And I didn't really, so it was simple. I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna eat this fruit for a while and see what happens. And the same thing, you know, like as time went on, it became really clear to me that this really works for me emotionally and physically. And I know that other people have gone through a myriad of other kind of ways of eating to find this. And I know also that some people have found this and then left it. And I feel just really grateful that my body and my mind seem to align with this style of eating, and I keep returning to it as the most ideal for my physical and my mental state. And stepping outside of that and maybe having some cooked food, plant-based cooked food here and there feels really good for me, and I enjoy having that option because I don't necessarily enjoy an idea of limitation. But that's a choice as well. And the experimentation is part of the process. But the conclusion has always been, so far in the last 5 years, a fruit-based lifestyle feels the best. There's a lot of, I guess, different definitions and ways to think about minimalism, and I really love choosing this one, which is minimalism for me is a tool that I use to find the things that best serve me and bring them closer and let go of the things that don't. And like we were talking about in relationships earlier, you know, that's exactly what I did there. I did the same thing with diet. I did the same thing with finances. I did the same thing with jobs. And I didn't even know about minimalism. I was just kind of using this tool, which was like, what's best for me? This thing is. That thing's not. Okay, that's easy. But bringing in this idea of minimalism, like an actual protocol, I think is really helpful for people, and to have it now as something like a more defined kind of understanding in my own mind continues to be really helpful.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I feel like minimalism has felt so natural for me. It's felt like a natural progression towards it. Like I've always been drawn to open spaces to create in, and the process of clearing out has always been really alluring to me and organizing. But specifically, like starting on my minimalism journey, I've felt like minimalism has been like letting go of elements that feel like they're not adding value to my life, or more recently, I guess I'd say like that feel like they're not a hell yes, to make space to allow, like to welcome and to allow the things that I've already set up preferences for. Like throughout my whole life, we've all been setting up preferences for like our dreams and the things we want to live. And I feel like when we clear out the crap, that stuff naturally will come to us and will naturally gain inspiration in those open spaces. And then I've found that minimalism just so easily permeates every area of our lives when we allow it. Once, you know, you think about downsizing your wardrobe or whatever element you start with, there's questions that you begin asking yourself that get into your daily life. Like, is this really serving me? Like, what would it feel like not to have this? Would it feel more spacious? Would it feel confining? Would it feel like, how would it feel? And for me, it feels like an opening, like opening up to more possibilities. And spaciousness in general feels like I can breathe in that space, and it feels like I can live just like a way more ideal life.
Brittany and I both choose to kind of unidentify as much as possible so that we can feel like as free as we want every single moment to do the things we want to do without having a preconceived idea of how we should do them based on an identity that we've ascribed to ourselves.
I love that.
So polyamory does kind of fit, us as an identity, but we don't necessarily like adhere to it as much, but we do like referring to it to bring in an audience.
Yeah, just like, pointing to a fruit-based diet can help describe more of what we're doing. I feel like polyamory has become a helpful term, or maybe open relationships, or in general, for people to understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so as it's defined, I think polyamory is something like sharing love with multiple partners simultaneously.
Yeah, and I think there's an assumption that when you say polyamory, you're talking about multiple sexual partners. And I guess for us, we don't necessarily define our relationships based on our physical connection or not. We kind of just, every relationship is unique, different, and beautiful, and I want to support Brittany to explore any and every relationship she has in whatever way is best for her. And I want the same kind of support. And so that kind of understanding is where we come from.
Sometimes we explain it like, I'm Brittany and this is Conor.
Right.
And like, we're two humans who just love loving. We love to love each other. We love to love ourselves. We love to love the world, and we love to do it in a really authentic way. So it looks different with everybody. So sometimes we are connecting sexually with different people, and sometimes we're having conversations with different people. Sometimes we're connecting with multiple people together at once. Just feels like whatever naturally could unfold if we allowed ourselves the freedom to explore it. And for us, that feels really safe, and that feels really luxurious. That feels really ideal for me.
Yeah, and it's really affected my life completely. I mean, it just aligns with everything else that I've been wanting for so long. And just like the foods that I choose to eat now, and the type of movement that I engage in, the type of day-to-day activities that I do, relationships, they're free. They're based in freedom. They're based in non-assumption and non-expectation. And they're based in joy, the pursuit of joy and authenticity, and to be myself, and to unfold and see it again and do it again, and live each day in the moment.
And it may go without saying, but we feel like this just really enhances our lives, which is why we do it.
Over the last 4.5, almost 5 years of really changing my life, the root of all of this has been because I love myself. And I have enough love for myself that I want to eat the best foods possible. I want to have the best relationships in the world. I want to have the most freedom and the most passion that I can. When I wake up in the morning and take a big breath, that's because I love myself. And when I come to the park and I'm sitting in the grass, it's because I love myself. And this idea of self-love is something that I've really noticed has brought, like, keeping the idea in my heart has brought me more of it. And I think it's the most important thing that I'd like to encourage other people to seek.
I totally agree. I've found it at the root of my journey too, and it's also felt like in loving myself that way, I'm putting the energy into my development and my growth. And I'm also saying, like, I come first. And I've found that in doing that, in saying, like, I can put myself first. I choose to put myself first. I choose to take care of myself and then share my love with others. From that place, I've been able to just reap the most amazing benefits, and I also feel like I have the most to share with the world. I feel like I have the most potent full self, the most love to share, and I've found that my relationships have flourished, and I've been able to contribute more to other people's lives. I know that a lot of times we're taught this idea of, like, that's being selfish, like you need to take care of others before yourself. You put others before yourself. And in my experience, I've found that it's not as effective. But if we can all take care of ourselves and all get our needs met, I feel like that energy that we can then bring to the rest of the world is truly incredible.
And it's life-changing, you know. I think this is the way that we truly change the world, is by loving ourselves right into health, aligning with health mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, which is just another word. Like, health is synonymous with love, I think.
Yeah.
And aligning with love and aligning with health and shining that in the world is really how to affect change, I believe. We don't need to resist or fight against things. We can just go inside and say, I value me, and I want to make a change today, even if it's a small one. And that's something that I think everyone, all of us, can do, no matter where you're at in your journey.
I love it.